Hello and Merry Christmas and all of those things that go along with it. So, hey, thanks for coming back to CBS and taking time out of your busy schedule. And it's great to see you, kind of. Let's open in a prayer. Father, thanks for bringing us back. And thanks for Thanksgiving. Thanks for family. Thanks for the Christmas season. Oh, Father, we do thank you for the birth of our Savior, the birth of our Lord, the birth of our King. Father, we ask that you will remind us of the fact that we celebrate Jesus, that we should do so not just this month, but every day throughout the year. So, Father, fill us with your Holy Spirit. We have the spirit of Christmas today and every day. We pray, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen. So let's be honest. Some of you I know have complained or have said privately or said to your friends, I think I'm losing my memory. I just don't remember things like I used to remember. And you're kind of down about that. But look, I'm here to encourage you, okay? Don't be afraid of you losing your memory. You're not losing your memory. And I'll prove it, okay? So I'll prove you're not losing your memory. Just say along with me. Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. Fuzzy Wuzzy had no hair. Fuzzy wasn't very fuzzy, was he? Right? I mean, so you know that. You memorized that when you were 3. Your memory's not bad. Come on, guys. Oh, I read recently, this time of the season you hear stories, and I heard one just the other day. So there was a Jewish man, and he was troubled. And so he went to his rabbi, and his rabbi says, what's troubling you? And the guy says, I don't want to tell you. And the rabbi says, no, go ahead and tell you. I'm your rabbi. You can tell me. And he says, well, Rabbi, you'll never believe this, but my son left the house and became a Christian. And the rabbi said, whoa, I got to tell you, don't tell anybody, I'm a rabbi, but recently my son left the house and became a Christian. Oh, man, and the rabbi were so upset over this, and the man said to the rabbi, what do we do, Rabbi? What do we do? And the rabbi said, well, let's pray. And so they got down on their knees and they prayed to God, and God said, in answer to their prayer, you'll never believe this, but my son left the house and became a Christian. Oh boy, 2 Samuel chapters 5 through 10, 6 chapters. Wow, I know your coordinators told you this, and I'm glad that they warned you that I'm taking 3 hours for this talk tonight. I mean, what do you do with 6 chapters? Come on. So we're going to talk about David takes the throne. David finally takes the throne, right? We ask what? And we'll look at David's position in Israel. We'll ask so what? And we'll look at our place in this story. And we'll ask now what? We'll look at God's place in our lives. For you see, the Lord is truth and grace. The Lord is truth and grace. So when we ask what and we look at the what for gee whiz, 6 chapters here, we see a story of God's holy person. We see a story of God's holy promise. We see a story of David's humble prayer. Then we see a story of God's holy grace. Chapters 5 through 10 picture picture David's expanding kingdom. In chapter 5, David becomes king over all Israel. Finally becomes king over all Israel, united the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, uniting the 12 tribes of Israel. Chapter 6, David decides and does bring the Ark of the Covenant back to Jerusalem. Chapter 7, we see one of the great chapters in the Bible, God's promise to us, to Israel through David. Chapters 8 and 10 are about fighting God's battles by David and the Israelites. And an interlude in there, chapter 9, is David's act of kindness. David was 30 years old when he became king, and he reigned 40 years. In Hebron, he reigned over Judah 7 years and a half. And in Jerusalem, he reigned over all Israel and Judah for 33 years. So how did David accomplish this for 40 years? The Bible tells us. It always gives us the answer, right? And David became more and more powerful because the Lord God Almighty was with him. Well, I think that's the main point of chapter 5, and says it again. And David knew that the Lord had established him as king over Israel, and that God had exalted his kingdom for the sake of his people, Israel. That's repeated in chapter 8, verse 6 and verse 10, right? The Lord gave David victory wherever he went. Again, the Lord gave David victory wherever he went. The good things that happened to David were due to the Lord blessing him, right? Why? God is merciful. God is gracious. God is good. But also, I think in part because David has finally learned the lesson of chapters 1 through 4. Twice here in chapter 5, it says David inquired of the Lord. He inquired of the Lord first. Verse 19, David inquired of the Lord. Verse 23, David inquired of the Lord. David's finally got it right. He inquires of the Lord first. And so the shepherd of sheep becomes the shepherd of the people, right? The shepherd of his father's house, father's flock. That's little f. His little f father's flock becomes shepherd of his capital F father's flock. Capital F father's flock. God himself. So we look at God's holy person in chapter 6, and we see the paraders of the lost ark, right? And look, Israel has been in spiritual starvation. The tabernacle has been at Gibeon. The ark has been at Kiriath Jearim, or however the heck you pronounce that. And worship is non-existent. And David wants to renew the spiritual fervor of his countrymen. And this is a revival. David says, God is in my heart, and I want people to have him in their hearts too. And so he decides to bring the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of the Testimony, a box, right? We learn about the Ark of the Covenant. Steven Spielberg teaches about the Ark of the Covenant, right? A wooden box made out of acacia wood, about 3.5 feet long, about a little bit over 2 feet wide, a little bit over 2 feet high, covered in solid gold, and on the top is a solid gold seat called the mercy seat, where God says, this excuse me, this is where my presence is, but between two cherubim sitting on top of the Ark of the Covenant, the mercy seat. The Ark of God, which is called by the name of God, the name of the Lord Almighty, who is throned between the cherubim that are on the ark. And so David and his men set the ark on a new cart and brought it from the house of Abinadab, and Uzzah and Ahio, sons of Abinadab, were guiding the new cart with the ark on it. And Ahio was walking in front of it, and Uzzah is walking alongside it, and David is accompanying it with songs and harps and lyres and tambourines and cymbals. And when they came to the threshing floor, you read the story, the oxen stumbles. And Uzzah reached out his hand to steady the ark. He reached out and took hold of the ark of the God. And the Lord's anger burned against Uzzah because he's an angry God? No. Because he's a capricious God? No. Because he's a mean God? No. But because of Uzzah's irreverent act. And he died. Uzzah died there beside the ark of God. What's going on? Come on. Okay, roller coaster David, he drops back down again, right? His exuberance causes him to forget the lessons of chapter 5. He doesn't inquire of the Lord about how to bring the ark back. It's written down, David, in Numbers. David didn't do his homework. He didn't read the right book, or he didn't refer to the book that he knew. And Uzzah knew better. I'm not sure that Uzzah was a Levite, but he was a priest, and he knew better. He knew the requirements of God. Look, God has this story here for a reason. It's not a random story. It's to teach the people. It's to teach us. We take God so unseriously. OMG. My skin crawls when I say that. We take God and His Word so unseriously. We forget His holiness. God has this here for a reason, to teach us about His holy person. David forgot to inquire of the Lord. David forgot to follow God's word. David forgot to follow God's instructions. Uzzah's intent may have been good, but he violated God's clear instruction that the Lord had given for handling the ark. As God is establishing His kingdom and bringing the people in a closeness with Him, it's a reminder to David and Israel that those who serve Him and worship Him and call Him God have to take Him and His Word seriously. So don't mess with God. Don't mess with God's Word. But we receive God's holy promise in chapter 7. We call it, scholars call it the Davidic covenant. 1,000 years before David, God had given a covenant, a testament, a promise to Abraham. Scholars call it the Abrahamic covenant, the Abrahamic promise. A promise that Israel would one day receive land where Israel is today, and that the world would be blessed through Abraham, and that Abraham would have more descendants than there are stars in the sky. And the promise that God gave to the people through Moses, the Mosaic covenant around 1446 BC, was a fleshing out of the land part of the Abrahamic covenant. And this promise in chapter 7, the Davidic covenant, the Davidic promise, is a fleshing out of the descendants part of the Abrahamic covenant. For the Lord declares to you, David, that the Lord Himself will establish a house for you. I know you want to build a temple for me, but the Lord will establish instead a house for you, a kingship for you. When your days are over and you rest with your fathers, I will raise up your offspring to succeed you, one who will come from your own body, and I will establish His kingdom He is the one who will build a temple for me, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. My love will never be taken away from him, as I took it away from Saul, who I removed from before you. Your house, your lineage, your dynasty, David, and your kingdom will endure forever before me. Your throne will be established forever. God promises a king and a kingdom. And not just any king, but an eternal king and an eternal kingdom. The people thought that was Solomon, but Solomon dies. And the people remembered that God said it would be from David's lineage, a son of David. And they began to call the son of David a Messiah. And they began to look for the Messiah to come. And they knew, and have always known, that the Messiah would be a son of David. It wasn't that David's desire was wrong. God had gifted David as a soldier and a shepherd and a king, but not as a contractor. David's desire wasn't wrong. He just wasn't God's choice as a temple builder. Instead, God says he will establish an eternal kingship and an eternal kingdom. And David humbly accepts God's word. For the sake of your word and according to your will, you have done this great thing and made it known to me, your servant, says David. How great you are, O sovereign Lord. There is no one like you. There is no God but you. Your servant has found courage to offer you this prayer, sovereign God. David humbly prays to God, accepting his will. And in chapter 9, we see God's holy grace through David. For David asked, is there someone still left in the house of Saul to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake? This word kindness is the word cheched. Cheched. Go look it up. It's an absolute love, an attitude of love which is unconditional. The New Testament calls this word grace. This is God's grace. Grace is God extending unmerited favor to someone who doesn't deserve it, to someone who hasn't earned it, to someone who can't repay it. So they find Mephibosheth. I can pronounce that one. Mephibosheth. Say that 6 times, Mephibosheth. And he says, don't be afraid. I will show you the kindness of God. For the sake of your father Jonathan, I will restore to you all the land that belonged to Saul, and you will eat at my table. I'm not worried about you taking over the throne, Mephibosheth. Instead, I'm going to treat you as my own son. So Mephibosheth ate at David's table like one of the king's sons. And Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem because he always ate at the king's table, even though he was crippled in both feet. An interesting little note there. So what? What's our place in this story? What's our place in the fact that the Lord is truth and grace? So look over these chapters. I have to realize that I am Uzzah. Chapter 6 is not about Uzzah or the ark. It's not about a box that's in some storeroom somewhere. It's about God and his holiness. The point to me is how I treat his person, how I treat his name, how I treat his word. I am Uzzah. The story is not about carrying a box of stone tablets and manna and Aaron's rod, but caring for God's word. Do we judge God for this? You best not do that. Instead, ask. I have to ask, am I Uzzah? I know God's word. How often do I disregard it and do things my own way? How often do I take His mercy and His patience and His grace for granted? I am Uzzah. And the Lord is truth and grace. And I am David. I've been raised up by God. I've been chosen by God. I've been blessed by God. I have His word in my mind and in my heart, and I still mess up. I still forget to inquire of Him. I still do things my own way. I choose to do things my own way and presume upon His forgiveness later. You've heard me say I'm so thankful that Chapter 7 of Paul's letter to the Romans is in our Bible, where Paul, St. Paul, the author of 13 books of the New Testament, says, good graciousness, I keep doing the things I don't want to do, and I keep finding myself unable to do things I want to do. Like David, God's word is in my heart, God's word is in my mind, and I still disobey. Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ, who saves me from myself. I am Uzzah, and I am David, and I am Mephibosheth. As Mephibosheth, because of his lineage, was an enemy of David, so before I became a believer, I was an enemy of God. As Mephibosheth was crippled physically, I am crippled spiritually. I am crippled by my sin. And the wages of sin are death, and I deserve death. And I am dependent upon another for His mercy. I need someone to carry me into my Father's house. And yet, as David said back in chapter 4, the Lord has delivered me out of all of my troubles. And as the Gospel of John says, God has chosen me out of the world. And as David says in the Psalm, He has invited me to eat at His table with His Son. I am crippled Mephibosheth. I am saved Mephibosheth. For the Lord is truth and grace. So now what? So Otani gets $700 million. Oh, but it's not that much. It's paid over 10 years, right? But you and I receive riches that we didn't earn. Otani earned his, but you and I have received incomparable riches from the Creator of the universe. So God's place in our lives is that, first of all, we take God seriously. Secondly, we serve Him humbly. Third, we receive His grace joyously. And fourth, we give grace freely. We take God seriously. The time is now to do that. Oh, come all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come, let us adore Him. Oh, come, let us adore His word. And let us serve Him humbly as He served us. Rejoice, rejoice. Emmanuel has come to thee. O Israel, O Christian, rejoice. Emmanuel has come. So we receive Him joyously, as David did. Joy to the world. My Lord has come. Let us receive our King. Let every heart prepare Him room, and heaven and nature and all of us sing joy to the world. And we give grace freely as it was given to us as David gave it to Mephibosheth. That's what the Christmas season is about. Receiving God's grace joyously and giving God's grace without condition. So go tell it on a mountain that Jesus Christ has come. Will you worship him in truth for his grace? If so, hark, the herald angels sing. Hark, let all of us sing. Glory to the newborn King. Glory to the coming King. Peace on earth, for God and sinners are reconciled. So hark, all you angels, sing. Glory to the newborn King. Let's pray. Oh, Father, we are part of your faithful that come to you. We are part of your faithful that rejoice, for Emmanuel has come to us. So we give joy to the world, for our Lord has come. And with the angels, we sing and go tell it on the mountain. Glory to our coming King. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.